Okay, part two. So Washington's leadership, really important. If we had had the time to read 1776, you would see how important he was. Even though he didn't win most of his battles, it was his stature. People looked up to him. He brought the intangibles, and that leadership was important. There's a video on the Dropbox about women during the war. You can watch that. Nathaniel Hale, probably the most famous spy of the war for the colonies. You can read over this. And again, a famous quote, that not really sure if he really said it. I only regret that I have but one life to give for my country. Really a bad choice for a spy. He had scars on his face. A lot of people knew who he was. So you can read over this. Sometimes prophets dull patriotism. They just wanted to make money. They didn't care who won the war or who they supported. As we moved out of the northern colonies and the war moved to the middle colonies, Britain wanted to control New York. Great harbors, good ports. They already had a lot of men there. I mean, look at this, 500 ships, 35,000 men. Washington is completely outnumbered. We don't have any ships, really, of battle-worthy ships. So Washington's going to retreat and cross the Delaware River. General Howe did not follow because he was still a little leery of what had happened at Bunker Hill. And he didn't want to fight in the winter. Most times they did not fight winter campaigns. The winter was where you hunkered down, prepped, and they got ready for the spring or the fall or the summer. Our friend Thomas Paine is going to write another pamphlet called The American Crisis. Washington's men, their term of duty was up. He asked Paine to write something to try and help convince his soldiers to stay and convince the people that this was a good idea, this is worth the fight. Famous quote, these are the times that try men's souls. The summer soldier and sunshine patriot will shrink from service of his country. That means if you're just fighting when things are going good, when things get tough, you're going to leave. We don't need that type of person. We need someone who's going to stay around. Tyranny like hell is not easily conquered. It's going to take sacrifice. Trenton, you can see this on the Dropbox video, also very significant battle because it was one of Washington's first big battles. They're going to cross the Delaware River the day after Christmas, the day of Christmas. The Hessians who were there had been up partying all night. The commander had actually received a note that there may be an attack the night before, but they were just having a good time. So the Battle of Trenton, very important, did not split the colonies, and eventually Washington will take New Jersey. So watch that video. Famous painting, that's completely historically inaccurate. I mean, it wasn't painted many years later, but it's very patriotic, so that's what's important. Frenchman who aided us, Marquis de Lafayette. Read through this. Saratoga, an important battle in New York because many people call this a turning point of the war, mainly because after we defeat the British, France and Spain, the Europeans began to openly support us. In the winter of '78, you have the famous Valley Forge. Actually, you can go back at this slide. There's a video called The Polite War. It's a parody of how we fought. It's pretty funny. This is his winter headquarters. There's always a lot made about how horrible things were. Letters from Washington to Congress calling for more supplies. I mean, they had stuff. It wasn't great, but they had stuff. The winter before was actually worse than this. But you always hear about this. But what's important here for this winter is that we get training from this cat, Friedrich von Steuben. He's going to show and teach Washington's troops how to fight in that classic European style, how to effectively do bayonet charges and load the cannons quickly and effectively and all that stuff. And it comes to fruition. It works. It helps. We see that this battle in Monmouth, New Jersey. You can read through this as well. France, very important, again, because they were giving us stuff. The French had an interest in a weakened Britain, so they were supporting us. Ben Franklin, very important as a diplomat, playing on the French fears. We've got to defeat that nasty England. read through this as well. Benedict Arnold, read through that. The natives, most of them were on the side of the British because, again, they thought they were going to win. Thought they'd get a better deal after the fact. We did send some guys to try and control the frontier in case we won. We wanted to already have established forts and things of that nature. You can read through this by George Rogers Clark. Our Navy, again, was not great. It was mainly a bunch of privateers, people with their boats, with guns, disrupting trade. They weren't attacking the battleships. They were attacking the merchant ships and taking their gold and things of that nature. John Paul Jones is nicknamed the father of the American Navy. Lots of great stuff about this guy, good stories. Some people thought he was just a lunatic. But he did a lot to fight the British, and he didn't fight them off the coast of America. He was fighting them all around the world. We basically had, more ships than captains. A lot of the ships had come from, more captains than ships. A lot of the ships had come from France. Anyway, his ship was an old trading vessel which they fitted with guns, which he eventually lost in a big battle against the Serapis. Jones really never made a big dent in the fleet. It was just a constant nuisance, and that was enough. The war then moved down to South Carolina and Georgia. General Charles Cornwallis is the leader of the troops there. There's a lot of loyalist support there. They take these areas very quickly. Things are not going well for us at this point. This guy and some of the people you see in this video, the Swamp Fox on the Dropbox, talks about some of the resistance movement in the South, guerrilla warfare. If you've seen the movie The Patriot, this character is loosely based on the Swamp Fox. But the video explains all that very well. Then we move to this battle in North Carolina. Guilford Courthouse. It wasn't a victory, but it was kind of a backhanded victory. We lost a lot of men, but so did the British. The British lost a fourth of their southern army. So because of this, they are going to move from North Carolina and go to the city of Yorktown. And at Yorktown is where we're going to force Cornwallis to surrender. And you can read through these things. Once they got to Yorktown, the French showed up with their fleet, so they blocked the British support by the water. Washington and Greene's armies met and surrounded them from the land, so they starved them out and forced Cornwallis to surrender. Eventually, Cornwallis surrendered. He did not surrender to the Americans. He wanted to surrender to the French instead. Didn't want to give them the dignity of that. So the war is over. We have skirmishes for a while, and it takes a couple years to get everything hashed out. Britain really is just tired of fighting. At least the people are tired of paying taxes for fighting. The British still had more troops than we had in America. But the king said yes, the people said no, and eventually the people won out. So the Treaty of Paris, the main thing is that it sets the boundaries for the United States. George Washington says, okay, I'm done. I did my service. Everything's great. We had already established a government during the Revolutionary War called the Articles of the Confederation. There was no president. So everything seemed to be working okay. We got our independence, and let's see what happens now. They also said that the loyalists who were in America who stayed would not be persecuted, but that's not going to happen. You can read through this as well. One of the biggest things is how much debt we're in as we start out as a brand new country. There's also a video on there, it's a parody, about Betsy Ross, because Betsy Ross didn't really make the first American flag. There were all kinds of people who thought there were different kinds of flags. These were all the different styles of flags that people thought represented America. People weren't so worried about having a flag to fight under as much as having weapons. And many of these were regional flags as well. All right, we did not get to watch this, unfortunately. It would have been very good to show you the divisiveness in trying to get the Declaration of Independence done. If you have time and you want to watch this, it is a musical. After you watch it, you can go through some of these things to show you true and false. Again, up to you. But it does show a really good way of how difficult it was to get all the colonies together and what they were fighting over. And these were members that signed the Declaration of Independence from North Carolina and we're part of the Constitutional Convention, which we'll talk about in the next unit. All right.